but that the city would wait nearly to the last minute is something that I predicted would happen since we learned that the All-Star Week was happening here, because they don't want to spur any sustained protest that could gain momentum. And if you all of a sudden are open and vocal and public about what you're doing down there, let's say this started 2 weeks ago in a meaningful way. Well, that's 2 weeks where activists are going to be able to get some momentum going, get people showing up, getting in the way, and making a big spectacle of things. But the funny thing is they're doing that anyway. They're just doing it now on Sunday. Now, Neil, again, speaking to Jeremy Harris over at Como TV, he got a hold of a flyer, and I've since seen this flyer. I've got a copy of it. And it tells people who are living in RVs to basically sit tight, don't leave. And it tells people who've got broken down RVs, you should come down here if you're not already in the SoDo neighborhood. In fact, you should come down to the stadium. Let's do something on July 11th, which is when the All-Star Game actually will occur. And so they're doing this because they want to get the media coverage. They want to send a message. In fact, this flyer is titled, "Let's Bleep Their Day Up." It doesn't say bleep. It says the full F word. Not even a little asterisk, even though we know what the asterisk, the letter is supposed to be. Doesn't even say it all the way through. And it goes on to say they've been pushing us around for months, hoping to clear us out of sight for the MLB All-Star Game. Let's make sure their work was for nothing. And, they say they've been pushing us out, giving the impression that these are homeless people who created this flyer and passed it. These are activists who are doing this. There's not a homeless person who's doing this. And it goes on to say, just imagine when the tailgaters and rich bleep show up for the big game, which it's not the big game. We don't normally call this the big game. That's another sport, correct?
Yeah, it's more commonly the Super Bowl. It's a big game. But
they're going to find exactly what the city worked so hard to prevent. Us. Now, there's this number on the flyer. It belongs to someone named Chanel, I guess. I called it, and it rang and rang and rang. And then I got a message saying the user didn't set up their voicemail. So I don't know how serious these
sounds
activists
really
are,
organized. No voicemail.
I did try to connect because I had questions. And on the flyer, it says, if you have any questions, call Chanel at this number. Now, we do know, as much as I don't know how many people are behind this movement and ultimately how many people are actually going to, as homeless, be willing to be used as human props by these activists. I don't know how big this is going to be, but we do know that just last week, when the mayor announced his revitalization plan, it was protested by quite a few. They were loud. It wasn't huge, but how many do you think were there? Maybe a dozen, if that, but they were very loud, and they disrupted the speech. Throughout the speech, they kept shouting out about how they're anti-sweeps and the mayor is pushing sweeps. So I'm assuming we'll get some presence, but I can't imagine it's going to be huge unless they're able to keep the RVs in that spot, which is precisely what this mayor doesn't want to have happen because it's a bad look. And unfortunately, we are just moving people around, not for a lack of trying. We offer resources. They choose to say no. Now, Jeremy Harris over at Como asked a very specific question of Neil, and I think it's informative how he answered.
If they came and said, hey, we can get you into housing, we can get you an apartment or a tiny home, would you be open to that?
I wouldn't, but and a lot of people won't.
A lot of people won't, including, even if we give you an apartment, okay? That was the question. We could give you an apartment or a tiny house in a tiny home village. Would you move? No, I'm not going to. And that is reflective of the greater homelessness community in Seattle and why things aren't going to get better until we take a more urgent approach to cleaning out these encampments and sustaining those cleanups so that someone like Neil, who I'm sure is an amazing guy, but so that someone like Neil never feels comfortable here.